All right, so this episode of our Five Themes of Geography video series is going to deal with the geographic theme of location, which asks the basic question of where is it? Where can I find something on Earth, in my community, in my country, in my state, or wherever? There's basically two different ways we can do this. The first way is by using something called absolute location. Absolute location is when I want to use latitude and longitude to really pin down exactly where something can be found on the Earth's surface, using lines of latitude and using lines of longitude, which we'll take a look at in just a second. The second type of location is one we use much more often, and that's called relative location. And that's when I'm going to use different points of interest and directions to try to describe where something can be found, where something is located. And it could be something as simple as saying where a state or a country is found, or it could just be giving directions to our house by saying I live on this street or that street, or I live near Wegmans, or whatever descriptions that you might use. So what we have here is a digital atlas. It's actually the Rand McNally World Atlas. You'll all have logins to come to this website and be able to log in and take a look at maps and play with the different layers and things like that. And I'll show you more about that in class. Or if you're watching this later, I may have already done that. But what you see on this map here is lines of latitude and longitude. You can see it almost looks like a piece of graph paper. The reason why there's different spaces between some of the lines is because, like we talked about, the Earth is round and maps are flat, so sometimes the lines get a little bit skewed. And it looks like if you look between 45 degrees and 60 degrees, right about here, it looks like that space is actually wider than between 30 and 45, and that's just because of the way the round Earth is being portrayed on a flat map. But if I wanted to, I can use these lines to try to pinpoint where something is located. For example, right around here is where New Orleans is located, and you can see where the hand is. And I would say that New Orleans is found at 30 degrees north, 90 degrees west, and that helps me pinpoint exactly where it's located. To see what this looks like using Google Earth, which is a free download, and it's a lot of fun to play with if you haven't done it before, Google Earth will actually tell you, using what's called a global positioning system, or more commonly called GPS. It actually tells you the pinpoint location using latitude and longitude, and also the altitude, so how high the land is. So to try this out and to see the exact location or the absolute location of where we are, I'm going to type in Belmont Station Elementary School, and there we are on Night Watch. Click on that and search, and Google Earth will zoom in for us. Away we go, and there we are. So you can see here, there's our softball field, there's our field and our track, and our school is right there. And if we look down here in the lower left-hand corner, we can see very, very specific latitude and longitude coordinates for our school. Now, we'll never ever have to be that specific unless you end up being a pilot or working on a submarine or a battleship or someplace where you really need to know exactly where you are. But it's nice to see on Google Earth and see what it looks like. So usually we use degrees for latitude and longitude, and I'm sure you used this before, anywhere from second, third, fourth grade coming into this year. But you can also use minutes and seconds, which we usually associate with time, but we also use it for latitude and longitude. So our north latitude is actually 39 degrees, 3 minutes, and it looks like 30.82 seconds of north latitude. So that means that's how far we are from the equator. Again, much more specific than we'll ever need to be. We would just probably round that to 39 degrees north. And then our west longitude, because we're in the western hemisphere, would be 77 degrees, 30 minutes, 41.11 seconds west longitude. Or we would just round it to 77 degrees west. And if you're interested, it looks like our elevation's about 327 feet above sea level, so we're pretty flat. We're in the Piedmont, so that makes sense. So if somebody was looking for us to be really exact with where we're located, we could give them those coordinates. However, if somebody was driving to our school and asked us for directions on how to get there, we wouldn't tell them our latitude and longitude coordinates, because they would probably never find it. We would probably use something to describe it more. So we might say that we're just off of Belmont Ridge Road, or just off of Portsmouth. Our school is located on Night Watch, which is actually not labeled on this map. We could say we're pretty close to the Luckstone Quarry, and that's where we're hoping to take a field trip a little bit later on this year. We'll actually drive down into that pit, but that's a point of interest that might actually direct somebody to our school, and that's a more helpful way of giving somebody directions using relative location. To get a better idea of how to use relative location, I'm going to come back to the Rand McNally World Atlas. I'll go over this stuff with you, but if you want to see different things on the map, you would go over here to where it says layers. I can click on this. I'm going to take off my latitude and longitude layer. So I'm going to hit this, and now my lines have disappeared. And by the way, those lines don't actually exist on Earth. They're only on maps. You're not going to see them like painted on the ground or anything. I'm going to go over here to where it says maps, and I'm going to check and see for a basic political map. And we'll talk more about this in our types of map video. But we're going to go here. I'm going to click on this and close this out. And now I can see the different countries and where they're located, and uses different colors to show the differences. So I'm going to actually come over here to, we'll go to South America, since that was in the news a lot over the summer because of the Summer Olympics. And this is a political map of South America. So if somebody was asking me where Brazil was, I could give them latitude and longitude coordinates, but I'll turn this layer on for just a second because Brazil is a really big place. So this part of Brazil has very, very different coordinates than the western part of Brazil. So I would have to use latitude and longitude for a specific place in Brazil, like I might do Rio de Janeiro, and give their specific coordinates if I was going to be using absolute location. But if somebody was just asking me where Brazil was located, I could use relative location by saying that Brazil is east of Peru. And this way I'm using another place to kind of describe it. I could say that Brazil is north of Paraguay or Uruguay or even Bolivia. And that's a way of describing where something is located. I could do the same thing if I scroll up, if I scroll up to the United States, and if I want to go to a political map showing the U.S. states, and this is what we're going to focus on this year. Let's say somebody asked me where Colorado was found, and here I am, here's my hand. I could say that Colorado was just north of New Mexico. I could say it's just east of Utah. I could say it's just west of Kansas or Nebraska. I could say it's south of Wyoming. I could say it's northwest of Oklahoma. I could say it's northeast of Arizona. I have lots of different options. So with absolute location, there's really only one way to pinpoint and use the coordinates. There's a whole bunch of different ways that I can describe the relative location. I could even say that Colorado is located in the central part of the United States. I could say it's located in the Rocky Mountains. There's a whole bunch of different ways that I can describe it, and those would all be examples of relative location. So there's a couple of different ways to answer that question that we asked at the very beginning of where is it, and that's what we're trying to find out for location. Most of the time, just the description is fine, which is why we're using relative location more often than not. Make sure to check out our next episode, which is going to talk about place and different types of characteristics of the areas of the world. See you then.